The next day I was sitting on the wall of the doctor's garden after tea, talking to Dab Dab. I had now learned so much from Polynesia that I could talk to most birds and some animals without a great deal of difficulty. I found Dab Dab a very nice, old, motherly bird, though not nearly so clever and interesting as Polynesia. She had been housekeeper for the doctor many years now. Well, as I was saying, the old duck and I were sitting on the flat top of the garden wall that evening, looking down into the Oxenthorpe Road. Below, we were watching some sheep being driven to market in Puddleby, and Dab Dab had just been telling me about the doctor's adventures in Africa, for she had gone on a voyage with him to that country long ago. Suddenly I heard a curious distant noise down the road, towards the town. It sounded like a lot of people cheering. I stood up on the wall to see if I could make out what was coming. Presently there appeared, round a bend, a great crowd of school children following a very ragged, curious-looking woman. "What in the world can it be?" cried Dab Dab. The children were all laughing and shouting. And certainly the woman they were following was most extraordinary. She had very long arms, and the most stooping shoulders I have ever seen. She wore a straw hat on the side of her head with poppies on it, and her skirt was so long for her it dragged on the ground like a ball gown's train. I could not see anything of her face because of the wide hat pulled over her eyes. But as she got nearer to us and the laughing of the children grew louder, I noticed that her hands were very dark in color, and hairy, like a witch's. Then all of a sudden Dab Dab at my side startled me by crying out in a loud voice, "Why, it's Chi-Chi! Chi-Chi come back at last! How dare those children tease him? I'll give the little imps something to laugh at." And she flew right off the wall down into the road and made straight for the children, squawking away in a most terrifying fashion and pecking at their feet and legs. The children made off down the street back to the town as hard as they could run. The strange-looking figure in the straw hat stood gazing after them a moment and then came wearily up to the gate. It didn't bother to undo the latch but just climbed right over the gate as though it were something in the way, and then I noticed that it took hold of the bars with its feet, so that it really had 4 hands to climb with. But it was only when I at last got a glimpse of the face under the hat that I could be really sure it was a monkey. Chi-Chi, for it was he, frowned at me suspiciously from the top of the gate, as though he thought I was going to laugh at him like the other boys and girls. Then he dropped into the garden on the inside and immediately started taking off his clothes. He tore the straw hat in two and threw it down into the road. Then he took off his bodice and skirt, jumped on them savagely and began kicking them round the front garden. Presently I heard a screech from the house, and out flew Polynesia, followed by the doctor and Jip. "Chi-Chi! Chi-Chi!" shouted the parrot. "You've come at last. I always told the doctor you'd find a way. However did you do it?" They all gathered round him, shaking him by his 4 hands, laughing, and asking him a million questions at once. Then they all started back for the house. "Run up to my bedroom, Stubbins," said the doctor, turning to me. "You'll find a bag of peanuts in the small left-hand drawer of the bureau. I have always kept them there in case he might come back unexpectedly some day. And wait a minute. See if Dab Dab has any bananas in the pantry. Chi-Chi hasn't had a banana, he tells me, in 2 months." When I came down again to the kitchen I found everybody listening attentively to the monkey who was telling the story of his journey from Africa. It seems that after Polynesia had left, Chi-Chi had grown more homesick than ever for the doctor and the little house in Puddleby. At last he had made up his mind that by hook or crook he would follow her, and one day, going down to the seashore, he saw a lot of people, black and white, getting on to a ship that was coming to England. He tried to get on too, but they turned him back and drove him away. And presently he noticed a whole big family of funny people passing on to the ship, and one of the children in this family reminded Chi-Chi of a cousin of his with whom he had once been in love. So he said to himself, "That girl looks just as much like a monkey as I look like a girl. If I could only get some clothes to wear I might easily slip onto the ship amongst these families, and people would take me for a girl. Good idea." So he went off to a town that was quite close, and hopping in through an open window he found a skirt and bodice lying on a chair. They belonged to a fashionable black lady who was taking a bath. Chi-Chi put them on. Next he went back to the seashore, mingled with the crowd there and at last sneaked safely on to the big ship. Then he thought he had better hide, for fear people might look at him too closely. And he stayed hidden all the time the ship was sailing to England, only coming out at night, when everybody was asleep, to find food. When he reached England and tried to get off the ship, the sailors saw at last that he was only a monkey dressed up in girl's clothes, and they wanted to keep him for a pet. But he managed to give them the slip, and once he was on shore, he dived into the crowd and got away. But he was still a long distance from Puddleby and had to come right across the whole breadth of England. He had a terrible time of it. Whenever he passed through a town all the children ran after him in a crowd, laughing, and often silly people caught hold of him and tried to stop him, so that he had to run up lamp posts and climb to chimney pots to escape from them. At night he used to sleep in ditches or barns or anywhere he could hide, and he lived on the berries he picked from the hedges and the cob nuts that grew in the copses. At length, after many adventures and narrow squeaks, he saw the tower of Puddleby Church, and he knew that at last he was near his old home. When Chi-Chi had finished his story he ate 6 bananas without stopping and drank a whole bowlful of milk. "My," he said, "why wasn't I born with wings, like Polynesia, so I could fly here? You've no idea how I grew to hate that hat and skirt. I've never been so uncomfortable in my life. All the way from Bristol here, if the wretched hat wasn't falling off my head or catching in the trees, those beastly skirts were tripping me up and getting wound round everything. What on earth do women wear those things for? Goodness, I was glad to see old Puddleby this morning when I climbed over the hill by Bellaby's farm. Your bed on top of the plate rack in the scullery is all ready for you," said the doctor. "We never had it disturbed in case you might come back." "Yes," said Dab Dab, "and you can have the old smoking jacket of the doctor's which you used to use as a blanket, in case it is cold in the night." "Thanks," said Chi-Chi. "It's good to be back in the old house again. Everything's just the same as when I left, except the clean roller towel on the back of the door there. That's new. Well, I think I'll go to bed now. I need sleep." Then we all went out of the kitchen into the scullery and watched Chi-Chi She climbed the plate rack like a sailor going up a mast. On the top, he curled himself up, pulled the old smoking jacket over him, and in a minute he was snoring peacefully. "Good old Chi-Chi," whispered the doctor. "I'm glad he's back." "Yes, good old Chi-Chi," echoed Dab Dab and Polynesia. Then we all tiptoed out of the scullery and closed the door very gently behind us.